I'm actually less afraid of violence happening if Trump wins because I
Mm.
don't think that the Black Lives Matter people are as likely to shoot me.
Biden is a non-existent entity. This is just Trump people versus everyone else.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty much it.
Either of these guys winning, it's a horrible future.
The big hormone enneagram.
Let me lay it on the line. I got a little freakiness inside. Let you know that the man has got to deal with it.
Hi, I'm John Lukovich, sexual self-pres, 4-5 wing, 458 trifix.
Hi, I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual 9 with a 1, 974 trifix.
What up? It's Emeka. I'm an 8 wing 7, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I am a self-pres social 3, wing 4, with a 369 trifix. If you like our podcast, guys, make sure you go like and subscribe us on the Apple Podcast app. And if you really like us, you should definitely leave us a review.
Yeah, I feel like we got to talk about
The elephant in the room.
Yeah, I think the next couple of weeks we're going to be dealing with the aftermath of this election, so it might be good to address it now.
I've completely disassociated, so I have energy for literally nothing. I'm like floating around in a cloud of like.
What's your worry though, Nancy?
Uh,
Shooting in the streets or that kind of shit.
no, not so much, because I always dreamed I'd go down in a pile of bullets, but I think my fear is that Trump's going to get reelected and the America as a land, like the land will get destroyed.
Yeah.
So, like, national parks will get destroyed and that kind of stuff. Like, that's my fear.
Yeah.
Which is a random fear to have, but like,
No,
I'm
I
so
think it's one of the
tied
most
to the
valid
land.
fears I've heard, because I don't think we're gonna have. I don't think he's got like let's say he refuses to relent office. Like I don't even know what that would look like or
Yes,
mean.
me
But
neither.
I found out today what that would look like.
what would that look like?
So there's a video on YouTube by Vance Jones, if anybody wants to look it up, uh, explaining what happens when a presidential candidate refuses to concede, and it's built into the Constitution. It's just like one of those precedents that if like it's built on like decency, where if it looks like you're not going to get the 270 electoral votes, you concede. But if you don't, what we don't understand, and what most people don't understand, is that the part where we do the voting, that's like the first stage of the election process. There are all these other stages that, because a candidate concedes defeat, concedes the election, that those become formalities, like the actual delegates. So there's like 2 or 3 other stages that if Trump refuses to concede, and there's a very good chance that he'll refuse to
But the
concede.
concession is almost the central thing rather than
The concession is
proposed.
important because it makes the other later stages of the election a formality, but they are important. But it's just like he explained like a baseball game. Like, just say like a baseball game is 13 innings, but if in a ninth inning, if it was clear that you wouldn't be able to win the game, then the right thing to do is like one team goes out there and says we're just gonna bow out right now. But let's just say that a team decided they weren't going to do that, and they decided to play out the last 13 innings, all the 13 innings, and fight all the way to the end. Then it becomes a problem because the concession is a big deal because it prevents the two sides from like rioting in the streets. Like, it could be a huge like civil unrest,
Like
that
months
could
of it too.
yeah,
right?
that could rage on for months, while those stages take till like mid-January, up until the
Nice.
inauguration. So it's not we don't know about those stages because
But
they're
it doesn't mean
formalities.
that he would stay in the office, right? Like, he wouldn't get to stay.
Well, here's the thing.
The
This is the
problem
scary.
is, yeah, I
This-
mean, he kind of would have to in a way.
This is the scary part, is that it's built in the Constitution that if he wants to not refuse to concede, and it could eventually go to get to the point where it's in the Congress, which nullifies what we did, the public vote. And it's just like a bunch of delegates have to decide who the next president will be. And so it's a difficult path, but it's a path that can just stall time and can actually nullify the popular vote by the people
See,
if it gets to that point.
this is the shit that has blown my mind for the past 4 years. Is there are so many things that the public just and really like the people in the government don't even really know exist because we've never had a president that doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, so there's so many times when we're like, oh well, that's not allowed, right? And they're like, no, it's actually allowed. We've just never had a guy do it.
And in 2000, I don't know you guys remember with the Gore versus Bush election, it came down to a recount in Florida, and the Supreme Court
Mm-hmm.
ruled. And that's why they've been rushing what's her
Amy
face's
Coney Barrett.
Yeah, because they want to stuff the Supreme Court with conservative judges so that if it comes down to it, that they can
Yep. And she wouldn't step out.
But I just realized that it's just more than that. It's if you refuse to concede, you can fight all the way up until January, because that's how long it takes to actually finalize the election. And it could come to a point where the Congress decides who the next president will be, because that's the process that's never happened before.
And is it the Senate or is it the House or both?
The House.
Okay.
The House will select delegates that then vote for
That's ridiculous.
And it's like, how the fuck we're just like finding out about this now?
Yeah, how do we not know about this?
Well, it shows us how fucking our system is like not for us.
Yeah.
Like all these things that are supposed to be written off as like checks and balances are really just ways to
keep us
basically like keep the ball out of the people's hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's unlikely to happen, but it's like, this is how a coup could happen in America, because politics is just basically a lot of politics just based on decency, which this man doesn't have.
We don't have an office anymore, so it's a fucking problem.
Right. Most people would be embarrassed to not concede.
Right.
Like
most people wouldn't want to be impeached and stay in the office. Like, I'm fully shocked that you can be an impeached president and still run for office. Like, what? Why is there not a law about that?
The only thing I'm concerned about in terms of everything is just when is government money going to continue coming into my account?
No.
So,
the answer is no.
So in terms of like a Biden win, the only thing I can think of, if the Democrats flip the House and the Senate, or flip the Senate, is they could actually put together some kind of stimulus package bill or something soon. Because other than that, like, we're fucked in terms of anyone getting aid from the government. That's about it. Because there's going to be mayhem in the streets regardless. But I'm just thinking in terms of how long is it going to take to get some actual bill signed that puts money in people's pockets. That's it.
Do y'all see shit going down in the streets?
Yeah.
Like part of the reason I normally am like, everybody take the streets or we'll go to the streets kind of guy. Part of what my, I don't know, cynicism or my like, I think that there could be like some MAGA shooter types or something, but like, most places are so divided, like that you have MAGA cities and blue cities, basically, like, and I don't feel like, I feel like Trump doesn't have like, he's got a lot of support, but it's like very dumb and scattershot, and it's not like he doesn't have like a lot of the institutional, I don't know, like legitimacy and support. I think that would require, like, I don't know. I just also, I don't know. I'm torn, because also like people would not fight for Biden, and I don't think Biden would fight for Biden, like, because Biden doesn't really stand for anything, and nobody's that excited about him as a person, and he's not offering anything. He's not like, I will get you your benefits. He's not saying, he's signaling almost anything the opposite. Like, yeah, don't expect much.
It's not even about him at this point. It's
Right.
just it's just
about not Trump.
Yeah, it's just Trump versus basically what I've seen is Trump people, MAGA people versus people holding up Black Lives Matter signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing.
Well-
So it's like Biden is a non-existent entity. This is just Trump people versus everyone else.
Yeah,
Right.
that's pretty much it. And I will say, like, I was just having this conversation with Brian like a few hours ago. We were saying that we were really worried about Richmond as a whole because we are the capital of the Confederacy. But we're really
Really?
blue. Yeah, that's what Richmond is. It's the capital of the
Jesus.
Confederacy. Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. So we're a really blue city. But 20 minutes outside of the city in any direction, you'll get MAGA all around. Like, we're surrounded by red, and people from outside of the city come into the city to protest. So, like, and that's what we've been seeing over the past couple of days is these people from like Goochland and Hanover County and like all the Mechanicsville, all these fucking people that drive giant ass trucks and wear MAGA hats come into the city and shoot up streets and cars and people. But they aren't like, so because it's such a weird kind of combination of blue and red in our city, it's gotten really
Well,
bad.
I feel like most MAGA people see themselves as law and order types.
Yeah, but they aren't.
They aren't, but that's how they see themselves, and so like I can't imagine them like having some kind of free for all rioting. Like most of them
Oh.
are cowards.
No,
And-
that's not what's been happening. I don't know if you've been looking at social media. Like,
That's
I
what's
don't
been
seen
happening here.
the trucks, the fucking brigade of MAGA trucks on the road, like terrorizing people and shooting people, or
Blocking
like,
traffic, running
blocking
Biden.
Oh no,
traffic.
I saw something of that, but I didn't pay attention.
It's really
insane.
I'm not concerned, but I know
No.
that shit is happening for sure. A
Yeah.
lot of shit is happening, and people are posting all types of videos of trucks and trucks of crazy MAGA people just going crazy on the roads. Just
Yeah, they're like running
Um,
people off the roads.
Oh really? Where?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Texas.
so
I was-
shit is
Go
going to
ahead.
go down. Shit is definitely going to go down when, regardless of what happens. I'm expecting some fucking violent shit to go down on the streets because it's already happening.
I'm actually less afraid of violence happening if Trump wins because I don't think that the Black Lives Matter people are as likely to shoot me
Yeah.
as the Trump supporters are.
Well, I mean, the Black Lives Matter people don't give a fuck about Biden. Like, cause Biden, like, it's like I'm always driven crazy by all the people with like Black Lives Matter in their fucking bios, and then they're all like support Biden, the incarceration candidate. Like,
Yeah.
And
they
then
don't-
Kamala Harris.
yeah, they're like they don't represent the same
Cop.
thing, and so like but what you got like the most diehard Biden supporters are like fairly wealthy liberals or managerial class liberals, and they're not going to throw down, like
Right.
One thing that would be a bad scenario for Trump supporter violence would be is if it looks and this is probably what's going to happen, is if it looks like Trump wins tomorrow,
But then he
and then
doesn't.
it changes in about 5 days to Biden winning, then that totally, like, quote unquote, legitimizes their concerns about voter fraud and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially since all the liberals are voting by mail because we don't want to fucking die.
Yeah. 90 million people have already voted early.
Yeah.
And so you would imagine that most of the people that vote tomorrow, the majority, or there's going to be more conservative or Republican voters tomorrow. And so there's a very good chance that, they're projecting that there's a very good chance that Biden is going to have a significant lead by tomorrow night, and that they can project that he's going to be the winner. But there's also a pretty good chance that they won't be able to do that, and it's going to take a week. And Trump's going to get out there and declare victory if that's the case, and then that's when fucking mayhem is going to begin, because it's not going to, if that's what happens, and Trump's not going to concede, and Biden eventually wins, that's what I expect to happen. But he wins because of the count of takes a week or 5 days to count all these early
Like it always
votes.
does.
Yeah. So that means that we're going to be in this for the next 2 months of just this bullshit, because they're going to fight it you know.
Other thing too is tomorrow is the very last day of Mercury retrograde.
Oh
Oh
shit.
yeah.
The
Oh
very first day and the very
Great.
last day are the worst because it's when it's as if Mercury is standing still. And that's the wrong energy for Mercury, right? Like Mercury is bing, 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 right?
Right.
It's fast. And so it almost certainly means that there's going to be reversals, right? From whatever it appears tomorrow, it's going to change at some point after.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
does suck. That's a
Yeah.
time.
Oh man. Yeah. 2016 was a disaster and a shock, and there's a part of me that is sort of like accepted that Trump could win again, but like all indications show that that's even less likely than it was in 2016. So there's a part of me that's like, come on, man, like 4
Right.
years of this, you still telling me that you're gonna have enough people in this fucking country that still think he should get another term? Like, I refuse to accept that.
There
Just
is like the teensiest part of me that really believes that Biden's gonna win, but is so afraid to actually believe it because of what happened last time.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
just
I mean,
soul crushing.
he's ahead. He's got a comfortable lead. It's almost 10 points, and so they're saying that in order for Trump to win, that the polls would have to be way off than they were in 2016. Which, by the way, we're still on a lot of polls still within the error of margin of error in a lot of the state by state polls.
Yeah.
So it's a long shot, but anything's possible. I just have a hard time believing that after 4 years of this bullshit, that people still think after this year, after all the bullshit and all the people that have died and how much of a disaster this year is, like, you want this guy in charge of what happens to us in
Yeah.
terms of coronavirus. Like, we still got another year and a half at least of dealing with this shit. So I have a really hard time believing that that's going to be the case.
I was on my bicycle yesterday and passed by the biggest country and western dance hall in San Antonio, and there was a big MAGA rally there, the Trump train they called it,
Yeah.
and it was packed, and it was all just everything you'd expect to see, the flag waving and signs and everybody honking horns and cops, and there were cars that were blocking the highway that were all like part of it as well, and it was stacked up so thick and so heavy with Trump supporters that there was an area of highway that I've never seen at a standstill ever in my whole life, and it was just packed with Trump people. Yeah, and it was so weird to see. It's part well, just typical American. To me, it's like, oh, it's kind of this thing on TV, right?
Yeah, like
but,
it doesn't
but
feel
like,
real.
Yeah, but like you see it, and I mean, I'm right on the sidewalk, right next to him, right, and passed him 2 different times, going out and coming back, and they were still there, 4 hours later or whatever it was, and it was like, man, this is a fucking trip, and news cameras everywhere, and wow, this is actually happening.
Yeah, I don't know if I can. I'm already negative and cynical about this country. I can't accept that we're gonna get I just can't accept that.
I mean, yeah, I just
can't
like
accept. Biden's already bad enough. Like, come
Yeah.
on, man. Like, seriously.
Our country is gonna go to shit if he wins again. I mean, like, and like I said at the beginning, like our land is going to go to shit. Like, the amount of fucks he gives about national parks kills me because there's none. And it's just it drives me insane because I just talked to someone online and they were like super pro national parks, like they hike and camp all the time, and they said they're pro Trump, and I was like, let me fucking break this down for you. You do not understand. And I think that's like 90% of Trump supporters is they just don't understand what he's about. They just know that he hates the same people that they hate and they're down with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as the land thing, I mean, you'd lose, with another 4 years of him, you'd lose, um, whatever proactivity, so to speak, on environmental
Yeah,
stuff or whatever. But
I
I
mean, we're
don't. But
already out of the Green Deal.
right, exactly, and so there'd be complete stall out as there has been on all of that stuff. But there's not. I would not expect there to be, because of the virus, especially, for there to be like a bunch of suddenly new oil and gas projects, for one thing, just coming from that industry. Because I
Mhm.
mean, there's not, because of the virus, there's not much oil and gas being sold, on a relatively speaking, right? And so
Well, that's good.
there's not new projects. There's not much money. The price of oil is low. There's not, that makes the money not available. The big, 1% in Wall Street that throws money into the oil business it's not profitable, right? So the
Yeah.
money's not going to come in for that.
Well, that's good. And just
Favorite thing about like Trump supporters is the way that they sort of see Trump as like this, like somehow like a masculine heroic figure
Well,
who, when he's like the most effete fancy boy who's like
Yep.
still upset that Anna Winter didn't invite me to the Vanity Fair party, like
wow, you do a really good Trump.
like I was like just even just like before I got on this call, like saw this guy posting this sort of like Trump in front of a train with a storm behind him and
Oh
looking,
yeah, I
it's
saw
like
that.
looking like really heavy and thoughtful, and it's like you like I don't I just yeah, I can't even fathom it. Like I don't know.
You
That's my
see,
Yeah.
what I think he looks up to Putin a lot, and Putin sets himself, at least in the Russian media. He has a photographer that follows him around and has these funny ass like photo ops that he creates for himself, like him doing tough stuff or wrestling with judo players, or just out in nature, like being a strong man. And people eat that shit up. Like
Mhm.
people really like, I don't know, just like this hyper masculine hero of some sorts that I think we talked about on the, maybe it was a head type call, or maybe it was a gut call, that six is really like attached to these strongman type 8 characters, and that's how dictators like Hitler, like how the fuck does that even happen? Like people think that, how would a Hitler regime come to be? But it happens on micro levels. It's still happening today. It's like you want a guy like this who's type 8. I'm the big man who's gonna just follow me and do whatever I say. People,
Brings in that Michael teachings thing too, of like
oh
he's got
yeah,
the king archetype.
yeah. That's another aspect of this that I might have mentioned before, is that it doesn't matter what Trump says, because the archetypal energy that he's coming with, not just that he's an 8, but he has a very strong king archetype. And so you could mute the TV and just see him on a lineup with other candidates. He just looks like the guy. Like, this is the guy that you're supposed to.
Can you say
follow.
more about the king from the Michael teachings perspective?
So, like, Michael Teachings is describing the archetype of a soul. And so different souls, there's a progression. There's 7 soul archetypes, and it starts from what they call an ordinal soul, which is like a very low-key one-to-one, versus a cardinal role, which is much more external and compressed. And so you have what they call inspirational roles, which are warm and about inspiration and getting people to move, like the priest and the server. And so the server is the ordinal low key version, and the priest is the cardinal, like John is an example of a priest role. And if you've ever seen John, he has a very intense energy, and he galvanizes people to like a higher awareness and that kind of shit. And then you have the action roles, which is the warrior, which is the ordinal low key version, and then the king, which is the cardinal. And so the king is like the exalted, the most compressed role. And so around a king, it's like someone who has really galvanizing energy around action, like large scale action. But on an archetypal level, it's like people look at that archetype and they just know. You don't have to say anything about archetypes. You see an archetype, you just know what it is. That this person has a regal energy, and Trump is really, really crass and all these things. But for some reason, people assume that he's supposed to be, CEO, whatever. And that's part of like he has a very strong. And so the king archetype has kind of like a, um, I don't want to say, how do you describe, like, I think David might be a king archetype. So whatever you think about, if you've ever seen a picture of David, like, uh there's a certain kind of sharp quality in the eyes, but also um pretty solid energy about it. It's very compressed but solid physical energy that people really respond to. And so, I mean, David's talked about how a lot of people just project as a nine, just project, assume that he should be the leader of things, and that's what that energy archetypally feels like to a lot of people. So that's part of why
I've
I
always said David is my king.
David's my
David.
daddy, so. What kind of archetype am I?
I have to look again, but I think you have some mix of warrior, artisan, and sage. But I gotta look closely. I'm gonna send a link because I want all of you guys to get channeled.
Yeah.
But I think you probably a warrior, artisan, something like that.
Cool.
And warrior is pretty like focused, productive, and I mean it's kind of the stereotype of three, but I think
That makes
It's
sense.
it's the one that kneels right in front of the king.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
On her knees, directly
Yeah.
in front of the king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right at crotch height.
Emeka,
May
what's
or
your
may not have the penis in
and
it.
mean,
So
yeah.
when I got my chart, I was like, "Fuck this," because mine was server, and I was like, "Ugh." That was like 5 years ago, and I didn't even take a good look at it. But server is the most low key role, and I think over the years I started to realize that. I mean, people meet me and they are surprised to find out that I'm an 8 because I have very soft energy. But there's a lot more to it than just like server role. I'm sage cast, and I have a scholar. So my three top archetypes are server, scholar, and sage. And but I have there's a thing called they also channel how much male energy versus female energy that you have. So a lot of times, like, roles that are low key, if you have a lot of male energy, it can seem really intense. And so I have a lot of male energy, and I have like pretty harsh overleave. So it just expanded my thinking on like how all the different ways that just saying what someone's role is doesn't really give you a full picture. For example, Vladimir Putin is a server role. And so it's like one of the worst people on planet Earth is a server role. So what does that actually mean? I mean, it means like the server role is an inspiration role, but it's really low key and behind the scenes. And so on the low end, it can be really manipulative and controlling from a very underhanded kind of way. Which anybody who knows me, it's like I don't really do a lot for people and like doing stuff for people, but like in certain situations, I'm the guy that handles like the
That's true.
crisis.
That's true.
Behind the
No.
scene. Yeah.
Behind the scenes that like make sure certain things happen. It's usually for like the benefit of um my people or whatever. Like
Right.
this is gonna be good for everybody, and so we need to sort of do this. And so it's been blowing my mind because I mean I rejected it, but I went back and looked and really looked into it, and he was right. Like everything in my chart was correct. And I have a chief feature of stubbornness, which should tell you a lot. Took me 5 years to come around to a lot of stuff, which is so I've just been, my mind's been blown, but I think I want all you guys to do yours because I want to see if my skills are any good, but I think it's really worth discussing in terms of it's just another very profound way of looking at personality, and also just essence, like what your essence is trying to be.
I mean, I'm open to it. I don't know much about this, but everything you said is very intriguing. But so before we kind of like I want to hear a little bit more about Michael teachings, because as before we started recording, we started talking about how this might be something that we do some episodes on.
Yeah.
But one of the things I want to say too that is sort of I've been sort of black pilled in terms of whether like people might be people are usually shocked when I say that, like, if Biden wins or Trump wins, like, to me, I don't see as big a distinction as a lot of people do in terms of if they
Mm-hmm.
win, because
Mhm.
Trump is this horribly destructive force. But one of my bigger fears, um, and something that I think has been panning out already, is I see liberals and people who are otherwise prone to be activated to do something that would be in line, like that I would call good or in line with my values, might make them just complacent. Going back to brunch is like the kind of the online joke that's been going around about liberals just want to get back to brunch to check out, feel
Yeah.
like they're an adult home.
I haven't seen that one. That's funny.
Yeah, and and I think that's a very real fear, like, or very real possibility that Trump is destructive and evil, um, and just destroying things left and right. But he's at least galvanizing some kind of energy. And part of the heartbreak of the last 4 years is that I have not seen liberals seriously soul search about why they lost in 2016 and
Mm-hmm.
what systems are going on that, like, they did exactly the same 2016 thing without learning anything and putting Biden in the front seat.
Mm-hmm.
This horrible neoliberal candidate and police state and all this kind of other shit, and a shitty human being. Despite all he's got character, he has no character. But
No.
I see him putting liberals to sleep. But what I like after the last debate between he and Trump, I read that support of banning fracking amongst liberals went from like 65% to 49% because Biden made the promise not to ban fracking.
Wow.
The global environmental meltdown and raging fires, and the rationale liberals give is that, but he needs to say that in order to win Pennsylvania, but most Pennsylvanians are against fracking too.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just sort of telling you where he stands in terms of the environment and how seriously he takes it. So it's like he's not going to do much to make the environment better. And yeah, he might not be as actively suppressant of it, but the idea that he is doing something when he's not can also like really dampen all the transformative energy that could come out. So it's like either of these guys winning, it's a horrible future. You know?
I agree with you, but I'm going to say that I don't think. I think people are assuming that if we just get rid of Trump, get him out of office, then this Trump nightmare comes to an end. I don't think that's true, because what do you think? Just because he's taken out of office doesn't mean the Trump movement comes to an end. Like, he still has his Twitter.
Not at all.
He's a former president, and technically he can run again in 4 years and win. If so, I don't believe that the nightmare comes to an end because he still has his platform. He still has his followers. You think he's going to stop? Is he going to stop doing his rallies? I don't think so.
There's in the background, there's supposedly rumblings of U.S. military activity around China, and
Oh,
I
okay.
think there would be a better chance of a war with China if Biden was in,
Oh yeah.
right? And
I agree.
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, Biden's already signaling, or he's been referencing earlier in the year, another coup in Venezuela. It's like,
Hmm.
Yeah.
like
Yep.
I'm so fucking sick of American imperialism. And like,
Yep.
Yeah.
like the Democrats have been just as bad as the Republicans in terms of that shit. And like,
Totally.
I mean, again, Trump fucking sucks, but he hasn't escalated war that
Mhm.
much.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
he's been kind of cautious about it, actually, not because out of any goodness of his heart or anything, but just he could really have fucked shit. I mean, the Soleimani thing almost fucked us, but like Biden's already been signaling like opposition to Iran and like fucking. I mean, I think a lot of the RussiaGate stuff was largely, this like, oh, we're secretly being attacked in a way that only intelligence agencies know about and can see and can verify. And, meanwhile, a fucking Bloomberg was pumping so much fucking money into online presence and digital manipulation and all this kind of shit. And didn't leave a mark, even though the Russians supposedly, hacking all this shit. It's like, it was just the fever for a long time. And I'm not saying Russia didn't do anything, but it just became Russia was the new boogeyman. And it got liberals to be declaring that they're in fucking war with, like, Morgan Freeman was declaring, said we're at war with Russia, and it's like, who's that serving? Like, who is it serving to get people generally feeling oppositional to these, like, other powerful countries? And, like, I don't know. I'm very just cynical of the whole thing, and I don't really buy, the vast majority of all these different narratives. Like, I think that there's a lot of different fragmented actors. They're kind of just doing all these different manipulations of information, and then we're like, oh, but these are the ones doing the manipulations of information, but not these guys.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, it's going on many more layers, and people I think are generally willing to recognize because they're like, oh, these are the good guys doing this, and this is the bad guys. But I don't know. There's so much confusion and shit.
I think Bernie was our last hope, honestly.
Yeah.
For real. I mean, I got really depressed after Bernie dropped out just because I was like, these fucking liberals are incremental market-based technocratic solutions that are just alienating people even further and driving, us further into alienation and desperation. And if COVID keeps going and the economic crisis worsens and liberals or the Democrats get into power or whatever are not willing to at least even stand for, like, getting money into the hands of people or some major economic revival for common ordinary people, like that, I think will create a reaction that will bring us closer to fascism than anything Trump ever did. Because
Mm.
when you get desperate poor people that have no, it's like during the Great Depression, um, things were so bad that the Democrats, which were not really had nothing left, it was more regional rather than like liberal conservative. It helped. The Great Depression meant that Democrats could pivot to the left and make the New Deal. Um, and if the Democrats, which are seen currently as the legitimate institutional opposition to not only the Republicans but also just like fascist tendencies, if they're not able to meet the moment, I think we're gonna get like full on fucking eco-fascist militia movements. And so like
Mhm.
Biden could like I have a lot of fears about if Biden is in the complacency that can happen, and where like the threat of right wing terrorism, right wing fascism is not taken seriously enough, and there's not enough just alleviation of general cultural and social suffering, that it can create this like really reactionary, insane movement. Because without left wing populism, you're going to get, which would be some sort of form of social relief. You're going to get right wing populism, and it's going to get fucking ugly.
Yeah. No, I don't see I don't see I don't see a future that turns out well either way. The only thing I can point to is that there are certain areas that maybe a Biden win could stop the bleeding, but I'm not too confident that the Democrats give a fuck about making sure regular people have money during this crisis. That's like the most immediate thing. Like, do these people do they actually give a fuck about making sure that the average person has enough money, unemployed people to have enough money? And I'm not even sure
They're not
because
talking about it.
yeah, and so that's the part that worries me is that going to happen if Biden wins? Because I already know that the Democrats are just as likely to, more likely, than Trump is to get us involved in some bullshit war. Um, even now, and so I think right now the only galvanizing thing for the left is just fuck Trump. But it's the next 4 years I don't think are a good thing, and I think even the Democrats having control over the next 4 years, I think it could swing back the other way just as hard and maybe someone even more competent than Trump was, because I don't think this Trump movement is going anywhere, and they're going to need a new galvanizing force. Maybe it's Trump again in 4 years.
I mean,
Astrology I've seen from a couple different astrologers indicates something along the line of this literally being the last election.
This is the end.
This is the well. So, and I think what's intended there is that a whole new system
Mhm.
comes in. You know, either because of chaos or something, right? Just
Yeah.
extreme chaos and revolution over the next 3 to 4 years or something. Anyway,
I'm so hopeless either way. Whoever wins, like,
Yeah.
I'd have no reason to hope. I had that kind of mourning period this summer of just. It really did feel like Bernie was the last politician that could galvanize a real sense of how to um, bring a combination of climate and economic justice to people. And instead, the vote blue, no matter who freaks, had to push the worst, most senile, most right wing candidate, and who nobody actually cares about, against a guy with a cult following. Who, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just so dark and depressing. And I don't know, people listening might be like, what? How can you compare Biden and Trump? And it's like, you know,
Pretty easily.
yeah, we easily in more ways than might seem immediately apparent, but also just in terms of what does anybody think Biden's going to fight for?
Mhm.
What do they think he's going to stand for? What is, like, he hardly left his home to have a campaign. You know,
Mhm.
he's got all his potential cabinet lists are full of Republicans and neocons. The Lincoln Project is this completely dumb fucking thing where these never Trump neocons are trying to rebrand themselves to be accepted by liberals, and it's working pretty well. And so it's just a Trojan horse for like right wing reactionary austerity. It's just turning the Democratic Party into this like right wing economically right wing party that just is dumping all the religious fundamentalists that the Republican Party has, and there's going to be absolutely no left wing. Like, I don't consider liberal left at all. I think
Mhm.
left and liberal are entirely different ideologies. Like liberalism encompasses what we call liberals and conservatives today, and it is pro market, pro free election ideology. And I think that leftism, socialism, communism, or like an anarchism are like different paradigms. And so I don't consider liberals more left than conservatives. I consider them, you say, more progressive. But anyway, I'm being on a tangent. But I kind of made peace with like how fucking hopeless I feel about everything like months ago. And there's nothing in, besides a few like fucking people in the House of Representatives, there is nothing signaling to me that there's going to be anything good politically again. Like, I think we're ruining the planet.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at the right, for example, like the the Trump movement, I don't see how the Republican Party even has a party,
Yeah,
because Biden represents probably what they want
totally.
for the most part, and then they've been taken over by Trumpism, and that's only going to become more intense as as time goes on. So I don't. The future politically looks very grim. Just not good, because one, the left isn't going to allow a real left to emerge like it should, and the right is only going to become more extreme. Like, just imagine someone more competent than Trump, like another galvanizing force,
Right. I
if
mean,
he dies in the next 5 years or something.
like one of the people, like one of the things going on a lot is people referring to how Tucker Carlson uh is appropriating like he's speaking to very overt fascism while at the same time speaking to economic issues like he's one of the few public figures that will talk about wealth inequality, but he's talking about it from a right wing populist perspective, which is like the breeding ground for fascist takeover. It's like
Mm.
he's the scare. Like
Yep.
if there's not like the left needs to get ahead of that conversation in terms of wealth inequality and like and social breakdown, and not give it a right wing populist spin, because that's like there's so much parallel in terms of just like like fucking Nazism, like in terms of the pressures people feel. And it's like in these times where people are so pressured, either they're galvanized by a left wing transformative, let's like fucking reform our society to give money and resources and ownership to the lower classes, or in a right wing populist way, which is like turn your anger against immigrants or whoever and fucking wipe them out. And it's like Tucker Carlson is using the right language to sell the wrong ideas, and it's like going completely under the radar except for his feverish audience. It's
Hmm.
really scary that he like, because the right has no problem adopting totally flaccid media personalities.
Nancy, it must feel good to have plans to be out of this fucking hellhole country.
Oh
And-
yeah. We talked about if Trump gets elected, we're out sooner. Cause
Oh yeah.
yeah,
How
as soon as a country will open and let us in.
Wow.
Yeah, because
Right now, you can't go anywhere, right?
we can't go anywhere right now. But I'm thinking maybe we even just go to Iceland for a few months. I don't know, but yeah, because Brian just quit his job, so we're kind of free to go wherever we want, wherever job takes us. So
Hmm.
yeah, we're not staying. It just depends on when we leave.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really, it's making me sad because it's like, this is my home, and
Yeah.
I don't want to see it go to shit. But I'm also worried that, like, if Trump wins, the rest of the world's going to go to shit. So am I really going to be able to get away from it? I don't know.
Well,
But,
So
I
you're
don't know.
loyal to the Confederacy.
I'm loyal to
Your
the
home.
land.
to the
I'm not-
land.
To the land. Let's be very specific. I
Come
like
on.
the mountains.
Let's see that flag.
No.
Anyway, is there anything related to this that we want to say about Enneagram?
No.
No. Plus, I've got to
Well,
get to bed.
I'm just gonna frame it as a BHE election special.
I also don't think many people are very focused on anything but the election right now.
Exactly.
It's going to be that
Just-
way for a couple of weeks at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you non-social types can make me happy. My birthday is on Friday, so make sure you wish me a happy birthday.
All right.
Thanks for letting us know.
You're welcome. I don't care if people remember my birthday. I just want attention. So.
Yeah, Emeka, isn't your birthday soon too?
Yeah, it's on the 5th, but I usually
Oh,
don't tell
really?
any. I don't usually tell anybody.
I feel like
But
we've
it's-
discussed this
But it's going to
before.
be on the podcast so that a few
Yeah.
hundred people hear about
Yeah.
Oh fuck!
Emeka's birthday special.
I'm the editor, so
We'll see if it makes it on there.
it. So we'll
It's
need
not.
to mention it a few more times.
Exactly. You have the same birthday as my aunt.
Oh really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my birthday sometimes ends up on being election. I think it
Yeah,
was
same.
election day when Obama first won. I distinctly remember sitting there thinking it felt special,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
is.
just turned
It's very special.
25, and I was like,
Aw.
wow, it's a weird feeling.
Oh, you're an old man.
I know.
How old are you gonna be?
37.
Whoa. Okay.
I was like-
that is
that was-
not
That's
what I
getting
would have
scary.
expected.
Yeah, that was the first. 37 was like, oh shit, what?
That's getting to be older than me, man.
Yeah, David is eternal.
Yeah.
37 is like, god damn, really?
I forget how much younger I am than you guys when I'm talking to you.
What are you, like 25?
I'm turning 25, yeah.
Oh shit.
I'm like half of y'all's age. Not
Jesus
I
you,
mean,
Erica,
Christ.
I'm
but-
14 with a hormone problem.
I'm 55 with a hormone problem.
I remember what it felt like when I was turning 25. I was like, oh shit. That was the first time I felt like I was getting old.
Well,
at 25.
I'm out of the 18 to 25 range now. Like I'm
Yeah.
out like the 26 to 30.
So now we can consummate finally.
Yeah. Well, I have a thing for 50 and over.
Yeah, I do know that.
They're my favorite.
Okay, I'll pull out the gray hairs.
Oh, perfect.
Warriors
I
and
love
kings
that.
getting together.